Every day I scroll through Twitter, I see young women who look like me. Their smiles gleam through the screen, and their eyes are bright, seemingly filled with happiness. I can't help but to smile with them, until I see the caption plastered above. So-and-so is missing, hasn't been seen in X amount of time, she's only 18, or 17, or 16, or 15. Please retweet. My smile immediately turns into a grave frown as I retweet yet another missing persons post, typically the third one that I've seen that day. According to the National Crime Information Center's 2018 Missing Person and Unidentified Person Statistics, a total of 612,846 people were reported missing. Of that amount, over 207,000 of those missing were Black men, women, and children. Let's break it down some more. As of last year, between 64,000 and 75,000 of those missing Black persons were young women and girls, many barely out of their teens. And the question remains, where have these girls gone? How is it that they can vanish without a trace of evidence? And more importantly, why has society not seemed to notice or care about these young missing women and girls? As a young woman of color myself, I've noticed the recently alarming amount of girls around my age or younger who have been reported missing, and it's scary to say the least. With the increasing amount of sex traffickers in Ohio alone, it is important that all women are aware of the dangers of human trafficking, and even more important for women of color to get the same amount of exposure in missing persons cases. And this is my main reason for being here today, which is to just promote exposure. Blatantly, the amount of media coverage given to Black women and girls is very insufficient compared to the media coverage of missing white women. The nation has been familiarized with the Natalie Holloways and Amanda Berries of the world, with the Anissa Reeds and Victoria Shaws pictured within this collage, among other Black women and girls, are forgotten or not mentioned or simply just glazed over. This is partially due to the criminalization of Black people in general. Latasha D. Mays discusses in her Ebony.com article why the crisis of missing Black girls needs more attention. She says that there is a connection between the frequency with which Black women disappear and the cycle of criminalization and incarceration of Black women and girls. By ignoring or underreporting their stories, the media is failing these girls, but so is the criminal justice system. And this lack of visibility for missing Black youth has resulted in a lack of knowledge in the severity of the issue and a lack of concern for the families wondering where their loved ones are. So today I present to you Vanished, Where Did All the Black Girls Go?, which is a creative nonfiction novel that will explore the problem of missing Black women in America and the various places that they may have ended up. The novel will look at the history of human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking and organ harvesting, which are two reasons why these young women and girls have possibly gone missing. The places I have found that are prevalent hotspots for sex trafficking and possible organ harvesting are extensive, so I would only go to the top places that I found research in. I found that Atlanta, Georgia, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Illinois, and Toledo, Ohio are some of the major places for human trafficking in these forms. So my goal is to travel to these places, which seems crazy, but I would make sure I'm safe, have people with me. But my goal is to travel to these places and talk to the police departments, to each police department surrounding these topics. So I did a little research, and from Atlanta, I would interview Deputy Chief Stacy Gibbs, who is right now the commander of the Criminal Investigations Division. From Washington, D.C., I would speak with Chief of Police Peter Newsham regarding missing persons in Chicago. Regarding missing persons, sorry. In Chicago, I would speak to Melissa A. Staples, who is the chief of the Bureau of Detectives. And then in Toledo, I would talk to the detective bureau. There was no specific person mentioned, but I would talk to them. So the goal in talking to these officers is to learn about the steps they take in the search for missing persons. I'd also like to talk to either the survivors of kidnappings or to the parents of the missing to be able to get their stories heard and make sure that their loved ones aren't lost or forgotten to the public eye. And I also wanted to talk to community activists as well, just to get their opinion on how the criminal justice system is, how effective it is in trying to find these girls, and also their own efforts in trying to help look for the girls as well. So this is my working table of contents for the different chapters. Right now I just have 4 chapters and an introduction. So for my intro, where did all the black girls go? It will just provide overall what we'll be talking about throughout the book, and just provide more statistics in detail about missing black women and girls. For chapter 1, Inside the Mind of Sex Trafficker, we'll start branching off into the different places where black women and girls can end up. So it's looking at the process of sex trafficking, what sex traffickers look for in a victim, everything like that. In chapter 2, we'll be going into the world of organ harvesting and how black bodies may be contributing to that black market sale of organs. Chapter 3, Gone Girl in the Press, the impact of media, is just an extensive look at the invisibility of missing black girls in the news and how social media has kind of taken over the news and trying to bring awareness to these missing girls. And then chapter 4 is Finding Our Girls, which has been a movement in and of itself. And it'll just look into the efforts made by community members in various areas in the U.S. to ensure that the missing won't be forgotten. So I did a little bit of budgeting for this. I'll be traveling to 4 states, probably 1 week at each place. That's just a little bit of time frame. So I start off in Atlanta just because it's kind of the farthest place. And I got these from Expedia.com. It's just a little bit of like the flight, hotel, and car. That's what I searched. So I rounded everything up. From Cleveland to Atlanta, it'll probably be about $550. Atlanta to DC, it'll be about $770. DC to Chicago, about $680. And then Chicago back to kind of hometown, not really, but Toledo, $660. I looked at car rentals from hotwire.com, and for a rental from Atlanta, that would be about $200. From DC, about $230. Chicago, $250, and Toledo, about $300. I worked in food just because I eat. So approximately $200 per location, so a total of $800 for food. And then so far the total spend is about $4,500, but the remaining will be for like interviews, any other miscellaneous things that I need. So while the connection between missing persons and the human trafficking industry is a prevalent topic throughout the country, it tends to not be discussed when black bodies are brought into the equation. My hope for this book is to promote awareness and a sense of immediacy so we can no longer have to ask, where did all the black girls go? Thank you.